Welcome to the Book Boyfriend podcast, where we dish on everything from the alpha male to the sensitive soul. If you found yourself lusting after a fictional character, you've come to the right place. Here's your hosts, Faith Andrews, Elizabeth Grace, Livia Jamerland, and B.A. Wolf.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of the Book Boyfriend podcast. We are excited that you're here. And today, for our first episode, we actually have a debut author and a debut book. The book is called Love Nouveau, and it's by B.L. Barry. And I know we're all listening to this, but if you get a chance, definitely check out the cover of this book because it's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to tell you first, I'm going to read the back book blurb so you know what the book's about. And it goes like this. The only thing inevitable in love is despair. I knew from the start that he would wreck me. Nothing could have prepared me for the day he walked into my life, or the day he walked out of it. I self-destructed. All that remained was a shell of the girl I once was, shattered. I don't know if I'll ever recover. So, did you guys, actually I'm curious, did you girls know anything about the book going into reading it?
No, actually, when we picked this book for our first book, I actually just completely
I knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing.
Barb?
I didn't know anything either. I actually assumed it was about art just because of the cover. It was very artistic. It was artsy, and it was beautiful. It was gorgeous. But so I assumed that when I opened it up. But no, I normally like to go into books blind anyway. So I was pretty pleased to read this one. But no, I didn't know what it was about.
Yeah, I didn't know much either. I was the same. I thought it probably has something to do with art. So it did, I guess. So first of all, I'll just give you, everybody listening, a little setup to where the book starts out. So the story starts with Ivy, and she's just returning home from, she spent I can't remember if it's a semester or a year abroad in Italy studying, and she did that to escape her ex-boyfriend and as well as her sister and her parents. She doesn't have the best relationship with her family. Basically, she's always felt like the disappointment, like the child that didn't live up to expectations because her family is very well off and a pretty prominent family in their community. So she comes home for graduation, and she's at a party with her best friend, and that's where she meets Phoenix, who is also called Nyx, which I loved the name, by the way. So they meet at a house party, and they spend that night together, just getting to know each other until early in the morning. And from there, they basically embark on a sort of long-distance relationship. I don't know if you'd call it a relationship at first. It's sort of like a courting, you know, getting to know each other, and neither of them's really sure where it's headed. And so that's basically the setup for the book. So I'll just read for a second what her description when she first saw him at the party was. So she said, his white polo shirt is just tight enough to showcase his muscles, and the faded navy Bermuda shorts look soft and accentuate his perfect ass. His dark locks hit the ideal length just before it needs a haircut. Long enough to grab in the throes of passion, but not so long it hangs in his eyes. He's effortlessly attractive in a not-so-obvious way. So what was everyone's impressions of Nyx when you first read about him in the book?
Jess? Are you there? Nope.
I'm here, but I must be on a really long leg.
What did you think of Phoenix, Jess?
What did I think of him? I loved him from the word go. He was an amazing character to me. He seemed like a sweet guy from the word go, and to me, he was very refreshing and something very different from what we were reading with the alpha male and the jerk of a guy, and I didn't feel like any of his lines were pickup lines. I felt like everything was genuine from him, and I don't know, in life I kind of fall hard and quick, and I kind of fell hard and quick for him very early on.
What about you?
I thought...
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, Liv, go ahead.
No, I thought he was very charming from the beginning. To me, though, at times he felt too perfect. And that was, I didn't have an issue with that, not at all, because I mean, who doesn't want the perfect guy? But you know, as I was reading, I was waiting for that shoe to drop, and I'm like, all right, you're a little too perfect, buddy. Like, what's going on? So I did love him. He's definitely book boyfriend material, but little too perfect, and he was charming. I loved him though. Barb, what did you think?
So I might be the, I mean, I'm kind of like you, Liv. I was very suspicious of him because we don't meet those genuine nice guys anymore in these books. We meet the dominant alpha male, the CEO, the one who has completely other intentions. So when we met Nix, I was really suspicious of him. I was like, what are you up to? Why do you want to hang out with Ivy so much? I really enjoyed his physique, his look. He sounded dreamy, of course. So, but I was suspicious. I fell in love with him. Don't get me wrong. He was damn good boyfriend material, but definitely suspicious.
See, I must be like the naive Canadian or something because I was not suspicious. I was like, you know, like there's, like you said, there's so many different kinds of book boyfriends, and a lot of them are very like aggressive or alpha guys, which I love. But this was a nice change of pace for me. I thought it was nice to have, he came off as very respectful to me and sweet and protective, and I liked that. It was nice for a change to read. You know, he had some baggage, right? He had the issue with his father cheating on his mother and that whole thing. So you could see that, you know, it wasn't all as perfect as the package first looked like. There was a bit of backstory there that obviously something was going on. But no, I just thought he seemed like I thought like, oh, if I was in college and I met that guy at a party, I'd be like, oh, I met a nice guy at a party. Like that's what I would say to my friends, you know? Okay, so most swoon-worthy moment. So what was your favorite thing in the book that he did or said or whatever? And Liv, why don't you tell us yours?
My most swoon-worthy moment, I actually have it here with me. It's a quote I took. He said, "You're perfect to me, you're perfect for me, and I love you enough to let you be imperfect." I mean, come on. What if any guy would say that to any women, you know, you're automatically swoon. So, yeah, that was my perfect moment. What about you, Barb?
So my most swoon-worthy moment, okay, I'm going to set it up for you girls, all right? He calls her on the phone, okay? He's on his phone, she's on her phone, and he's like, go to this spot. So she goes all the way to this spot. They're in completely different cities, okay? Completely different states. Here's the quote. "So rather than call each other from the confines of our own homes, I thought this afternoon we could share our favorite places with each other while we talk." Hello, like, oh my God. That is probably the most swoon-worthy moment in a book I've ever read. They're having a date in separate cities, separate states together. And it's not even just a certain spot. It's their favorite spots. He's standing under the arch, and she's at this gorgeous park. Yep, that's mine.
Elizabeth, what's your favorite?
Yeah, that was a good moment. My favorite was actually when they were in, or actually not they. When Ivy was in the hotel, she had gone for the job interview in New York City, and she had heard a knock on the door, and it was room service, and she was a little bit confused because she hadn't ordered anything. And they came with I think it was like a tray of strawberries and some champagne or wine or something. And so actually I printed out the quote from that spot. So it says, so she's talking to him. He got the iPhone. This is when he got the iPhone to video chat with her. And if you remember, he was so like against, you know, having a modern phone, and he got it just so they could video chat. So they were video chatting, and she heard a knock at the door. She goes to the door, answers it, and she says, opening the door, I welcome the young man who places a tray of strawberries, sliced cheese, and a glass of wine on the end of my bed. Thank you, I say before returning my focus to Phoenix. Well, this is nice. It must be from the gallery. Examining the silver tray, I realize there's no note. I watch Phoenix's face light up as he brings a matching glass of white wine up to the screen as if to toast me. Or it could be from your date, he replies. My date? I say inquisitively. You did this? He nods. I shouldn't be so surprised. Phoenix has always been so thoughtful. Aw, you're so sweet. Thank you. And then she lifts the corner of the china and she finds the note, like the high school note where it says, do you like me? Like, yes, no, maybe. You know how I used to do those in like primary, well, I guess it wasn't high school, primary school. And I thought, oh my God, so for me, that was like my favorite, like, oh my God, like that's so cute. So that was for me, Faith, what was your most swoon-worthy moment?
All right, like I said, I totally fall quick. So by like 18%, chapter 3, right after their night together at the party, he kisses her hand in the palm of her hand, and he tells her to hold on to this until tomorrow. And I literally felt her butterflies. I felt like the warm and fuzzies. I couldn't wait for them to have their date the next day, or whatever they were doing the next day. And I don't know, yes, there was a part of me that said, is he too good to be true? But that moment right there, it was not a pickup line to me. It was, this guy really likes the girl. Can't wait to see her. So that was it for me.
Yeah,
Totally awesome.
I forgot about that part actually until you mentioned that. Okay.
What I really liked about Nick's was
Love it.
Just bringing it back, my mind just went somewhere. When you discussed, Elle, about him having an iPhone. When we first meet him, what makes him such a great book boyfriend is that he insists on not having any electronics when they go out on their first date, because he wants it to be, I don't want to talk to you and look at the back of your phone. I actually want to have a conversation with you. And that was like his big focus on the whole entire book, which I absolutely loved.
Good point. I loved that. That was very
So
cute.
did I.
Me too.
It was
I thought
original.
Yeah,
It was
it was original.
Yes.
It was good characterization.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so now I want to know, what is your, out of the whole book, what is your I wish I wrote that section, phrase, whatever? Babs, why don't you go first?
Alrighty, ready for this? It's a good one. I wish I wrote this. I want you in my hotel room, and I don't want to see the light of day until the entire building knows my name. Bam! Oh, like heat flashes from my head to my toes. I mean, I'm just tingly all over. I'm like, that one sentence got me so hot and fired up, and I'm just like, that was powerful. That was so cool. All right, Liv, how about you?
You and I think alike, Babs, because I have the exact same one, but I even went up further in the book where it goes, I want to be with you in every sense of the world. I want to take my time with you. I want you to beg me, possess me. I want you in my hotel room, and I don't want to see the light of day until the entire building knows my name. What about you, Faith?
Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit more sentimental here. I always highlight things in books. Always thinking like, aha, like she got this thing that should seem so normal for everybody to understand, but people don't get it. So for me, it was when she was explaining the screen painting to her best friend Rachel, and she told her that it was about falling in love, and she says, it's about despair being the inevitable outcome of falling in love. Nearly every single love you experience will encounter searing heartache on some level. And to me, that not only was it beautifully written, but it's so freaking true. It's the truest thing you could ever hear. Like, you're going to be in love, but love always winds up hurting you some way or another. So that, to me, was, I wish I wrote that.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Okay, so mine is not sentimental. And it's not really sexy. Well, maybe it's a little sexy, but mine's just sort of like a witty one-liner that I really liked. So it was when she said it was near the beginning, and she was talking about her ex-boyfriend Matt, and how, like, you know, they used to have really great sex, but like the relationship wasn't working, and she was cheating on him all the time, etc. So she said this one line, and I loved it. So she says, "Don't get me wrong, I miss the sex. I just don't miss the person on the other end of the dick." And I loved that.
So that one's good. I forgot about that line too.
So I thought it was funny. I was like LOLing when I was reading it. So anyway, so that was my I wish I wrote that, because I thought it was really really witty and funny. So anyways, and actually I have to point out that another thing that I loved in this book was that one of Nix's, well, his favorite love song is Everlong by the Foo Fighters, because that's my wedding song.
Yeah.
So I was like, yay!
I'll get out!
Yeah. Yeah, that's my wedding song. So, because our first date was a Foo Fighters concert. So that was, we made that our wedding song. So anyway,
Oh my God.
I thought it was hilarious when I read it. I'm like, yeah. So is there any other...
Like, while we're on subject of book boyfriend.
Yeah.
Not only do I love him as a book boyfriend, but I totally loved Ivy. I loved her. She was witty. She was hilarious. She said things that made me crack up laughing, and that to me makes a great book when you totally love both characters. So not only did I love him as a book boyfriend, but I rooted for her too because she made me feel good. I wasn't jealous of her. You know, when you read a book and you read the book boyfriend, you want to be that character. You want to be that girl. I rooted for them to be together because I loved her. She was just witty and great.
And even, going a step further and talking about the villains in the book, her sister, Jen, was a great villain because you never really see the sister being the mean person. Usually the sister in, the book is the one that's rooting for you. She's your best friend, your biggest supporter. This one, her sister was a twitch, a twat, and a bitch. That's who she was. And, sorry, me. But that's, who she was. And, the whole time, how is this your sister? This can't be your sister. And then, it ended, her sister's fiance was just the devil, so.
Well, but not even just that, taking it even further. So you have the sister, she's a completely evil villain, but then there are parts of it where she would act like a sister. It was completely fake. So she made herself so believable because she would sit there and say one thing to Ivy, then in front of Ivy and to her friends, she would be the doting sister that you always thought that she was. So she made this villain perfect because she wasn't just an all-around bitch. She was completely two-faced in that Jekyll and Hyde sense where nobody would have believed otherwise. So B.L. Berry did a fantastic job.
And then you find out, then you find out her big dark secret, and you kind of feel bad for her. So that's almost like the slap in the face. You want to hate her, but you can't because then you feel a little bit of, wow, she must be troubled.
Right.
So. Yeah, I felt bad for Ivy through most of the book. I felt like, she did some not great things and all that, and she wasn't, the best person, and she did a lot of things that I think some people would be like, oh, I can't like that heroine. But I thought that BL did a really great job in making the reader sympathetic with her, because of her family life, and I just felt horrible for the way her mother and her sister treated her. And so for me, I got what drove her to some of her behaviors. I was like, I can totally see why she's acting out like this. She's just looking for something she's not getting. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't have any issue with Ivy at all. I felt sorry for her most of the time, to be honest.
And I love the way her dad came through for her at the end. That was, it was great for him to sit there and explain to her and, share their bond over the Cubs and, their love for baseball and whatnot. That was really great to see, too. Now, I'm really curious to see what B.L. Berry's going to do with the second book.
Yes. Oh, my God. I can't wait. I cannot wait.
Me too.
Yeah, because I don't know. Nick wasn't my super favorite person at the end of the book. I'm not going to lie.
I know, especially when you read that epilogue. You're like, what? Who are you?
Yes.
Did I read 300 pages of this swoon-worthy guy, and then you read that epilogue, and he's like, I have demons, and you're like, what?
Whoa.
But see, that's for you girls that thought he was too perfect.
See, okay, here's the problem. I was suspicious in the beginning, and then I let my guard down because, he's just all fabulous. He takes her on these swoon-worthy dates. Oh, you go here, and I'm going to stay here, and we're going to talk on the phone, and then you fall in love with him, and then you keep falling and falling. And then
he's banging on your door telling you he's never going to leave until you talk to him, and then, he shows up at the airport when you're getting ready to leave and leave town, and he's like, I'm coming with you. But as she's sleeping on his shoulder, he's like, well, I have demons. Slap in the face.
Yeah.
We should have known. We should have known.
Well, we'll have to.
Just like every other man.
Story.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, so is there anything else that you guys want to add before we cut to our interview with B.L. Berry?
Great book.
Casting. We need to see who.
All right, Elle, take it away, girl.
Okay, I honestly had a hard time casting this guy. Seriously. I have a picture of this model, and I can see the picture totally in my head. I just don't know who he is. So I couldn't tell you a name to tell you that. So one person, I was kind of picturing him to look like a younger version of and Babs, I know you'll know who I'm talking about, and I'm sorry I don't know his real name, but Elijah he was on the Vampire Diaries and on, what's the other one, Babs? The Originals.
The Original.
So I kind of pictured him as sort of a younger version of him.
Yes, I can completely see that.
Yeah. Who did you think, Babs?
So my choice was Chris Hemsworth. The minute I saw him pull up on
Ooh, yeah.
Right? It's just kind of that rugged look, the sexy kind of profound jaw. It was Chris Hemsworth completely all the way. And he even looks like a phoenix. Google it. Promise you.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
I think it went the complete opposite way because he was so perfect, and I hope you guys don't judge me on this, but he looked to me like I see him in my head as like Chad Michael Murray from One Tree Hill. Like
I can see that.
I know. I'm like
I see it.
But like Chad, like I just picture him as, you know, I think I remember his name was like Lucas on the show or whatever. But that's who I see him as. Like I love that show. But that's who I see. To me, he's Chad Michael Murray. What about you, Faith?
I don't know. To me, every time I need a go-to good old American boy, I go with Paul Walker. So I'm thinking of a young Varsity Blues Paul Walker with that tattoo that she was talking about. I don't know. That's who I say. He's like that. I don't know, that America's sweetheart. That's who I say.
See, this is what I love is that we all, like, you read the same book, but everybody has a totally different mental picture of like who's in the book for them.
L is Daniel Gill.
Oh, is that his name? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Thank you.
We all have different. Yeah.
Sorry, that is the power of Google, ladies.
Okay, so we're going to, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see, we're going to throw to our interview that we did with B.L. Barry. And if you're watching this on YouTube as opposed to listening to it on iTunes, you're going to notice that some of us are wearing different outfits. So the reason for that is we had some technical difficulties, so we actually had to film these two pieces on 2 different days. But stay tuned because that's coming up next, and we'll also have a raffle copter in the show notes. So if you want to win a copy of Love Nouveau and you haven't read it yet, be sure to enter. And please, please, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the iTunes podcast, and if you could leave a review on the podcast in iTunes, we would be forever grateful. So we're going to throw to B.L. Barry's interview, and we'll see you next time. Okay, everybody, we have the author of Love Nouveau here, B.L. Barry. Hi.
Hi.
So, B.L., why don't you tell us a bit about yourself first?
Oh, a little bit about myself. I'm BL, B short for Barbara, and I live in Kansas City with my husband, my 2 kids, and my fantastic black pug named Fog Allen. Yes, I am a Kansas Jayhawks basketball fanatic. Yeah, I hate talking about myself. I never know what to say. My mom says I'm cool, I think. That's got to have some street cred somewhere, right?
How long have you been writing for? I know this is your first book that you've published, but have you always been a writer?
I've written short stories and stuff ever since I can remember when I was little. I did a lot of creative writing and poetry writing classes in college, and I had some published short stories and poetry coming out of that. But this was my first valid attempt that actually worked to come up with something that was more than 25,000 words, and somehow it worked, and people read it and liked it. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, I guess sort of a writer all my life, but finally just got the gumption to sit down and do it.
Awesome, and we are glad you did because we got to meet Phoenix.
Yay! There's a lot of qualities in him that I see in my husband, so I thank my husband for some of that inspiration, but I feel like so many of the male characters in literature, and there's nothing wrong with this, but I feel like so many of them are the ones, you know, that the girl is able to turn. And really, this one's about the girl being so flawed, and the guy comes in and is just sort of the rock and the staple for her. And he's an all-around good guy, and I think there's a lot of layers to Phoenix that a lot of folks have either picked up on or are going to get really angry about. But he's at his very core, he is an awesome guy. He really cares about her now that he's found somebody that's worthy of his time and love.
What about his name? Where did you come up with that awesome name? I love his name.
My friend Heather actually was the one who suggested Phoenix, and it worked perfectly because the name itself is sort of, this idea of a rebirth and burning yourself and coming back anew. So my friend Heather was telling me about a friend who had a son named Phoenix, and she's like, this is just the coolest name. And I'm like, oh my God, I love this name. I have to. She's like, take it, it's yours, enjoy it. And I'm like, okay. And so I ran with it, and it really worked out perfectly.
What about Ivy? Tell us about Ivy's name, because it's different. You don't hear the name Ivy in books very often.
No, and I love the name Ivy, and it actually started off originally, Ivy and Genevieve were going to be sisters named Holly and Ivy as a nice little wink to my love of all things Christmas. But the name Holly didn't stick, but Ivy did, and so once I figured out that backstory with the sisters and having them no longer be twins, Ivy really just sort of fell into the right place. And it's interesting because they live in Chicago. Anybody who's familiar with Chicago Cubs and baseball knows there's a lot of with this idea of Ivy. So that all just kind of fell into a the way it turned out.
And so, okay, so a big part of the book is art, is the art world, because that's what Ivy's studying. And so when I was reading, you seemed well versed in it. So I was wondering, is that in the book because it's like an interest of yours, or did you have to research it, or how did that come about?
I actually took a ton of art history courses in college. The course she's taking in the very opening, it's the Greek and Roman architecture. That was a class that I actually took my senior year and did a huge paper on, and lots of fun little projects and stuff on the side for it. But I have a lot of interest in art history. It was my concentration in college, so just a few hours shy of it actually having it be a minor. But I love art history. I love just getting lost in museums, and there's references all throughout the book that I actually had to go back and reference my old art history notes to kind of pull some of that factual sentiment and meaning behind different pieces into the work.
Very cool.
Yeah. See, it actually paid off, Mom.
Yeah.
How much say did you have in? Well, obviously we all have say in our own covers, but how much was the cover artist design, and how much was like, this is what I want, because it's just gorgeous. I love it. You don't say anything like that. And
yeah.
Shut up.
You blew me out of the water with that. So Najla Kumbar Designs designed it for me. And we kind of went back and forth. I gave her a little bit of the backstory of what Love Nouveau was about. And I just sent her a handful of different images and links and things that really inspired me and that I loved and that I thought was different and could make for a really interesting cover if we could do a spin on it. And so she's going through the links, and she emails me back. She's like, oh, my God, this. She's like, I fucking love this. I have to do this. She's like, this excites me. I'm like, okay, run with it. Like, if you're excited about it, I know you're going to put it together. That's so awesome. And she did. I just gave her some gentle guardrails with color, and she went to town, and I am so in love with that color, with the cover. And if I could marry it, I would. It's so awesome. It was fantastic. I think you're going to see kissing cousins is the best way to explain it. I've come up with a couple of different ideas that I really like that are still a nod to the original cover and the original sentiment, but it's still ownable enough to stand on its own two legs. So it can exist without it, but I think it works better with the other cover together. But as far as the story goes, you're going to see it's a continuation of Ivy and Phoenix. She'll get a little bit more Phoenix POV. I was really struggling if it was going to be all his POV or still predominantly Ivy's, and right now I'm leaning toward Ivy's, but we're going to have some stuff interspersed from our male mind.
Well, I heard something that you didn't really want to write this second story, that you were trying to Taryn Fisher us by leaving us hanging.
Yeah.
So, what finally made you do this?
Having it be a duet or having any kind of story continued, and I got yelled at by several bloggers, people that had the arc. They're all like, you're kidding me, right? Like, you can't do this and just let it go. And so I was like, okay, well, if there's interest, I'll continue. Because in my mind, I've always known where they're going to go from there and how things were going to end. And it was sort of that, kick in the ass that I needed.
Yeah.
Sorry, Faith. How long did it take you to write it, BL?
Oh, I started writing that Love Nouveau in November of 2013. That was the very first time I sat down to write it, and I remember the very first sentence I wrote. It's somewhere in chapter like 18 or 19 where she talks about, faking like you're on a plane and just going to sleep and wishing the world away, that whole little section. That was the first thing I wrote.
Yeah.
And it took me until June to get everything out, and then it went to some beta readers, and it went to my editor in July.
And do you have a process, or are you like all of us mommies who, well, I'm sorry, Babs, I know you're not a mommy, but you have your puppy mommies. You're your puppy mommy. Do you like sit with the kids on your lap and write sex scenes and shit? Because that's how we all do it.
I sit at dance class.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So the first one, there was a lot of late nights because my son had just been born, and so through the night nursing, I'm sitting there like writing on my iPhone, writing on my iPad. I'm just trying to get any idea.
That's Liv.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly what it is. So just trying to get it out and having it make sense later. And now that they're starting to get a little bit older, I'm finding that I don't have that luxury of having just a newborn to cuddle with and just get into writing. So now I'm waking up a lot of times at like 5 in the morning, 5:30, trying to crank out a couple thousand words before work, sneaking it in during lunches. If it's a slow day at work, I might be able to get some writing in. But for the most part, when I'm home, I'm trying to be present and there with my family while all the kids are awake, because they're only little for so long. And then finding those off times to write when I can. I am definitely all over the place. I kind of do my outlining with Post-it notes on a wall, and then things shift and they move. I wrote a scene today that happens probably 3/4 of the way through, and I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to get them to this scene? Like, I have to. It all happens. It's just a matter of getting them from point A to point B and having it be seamless and flow and work well.
And so, okay, so do you have any idea when the second book is going to be coming out?
I have been told not to commit to any specific.
Don't do
Smart
it.
girl.
Don't do it.
I know. So we're definitely looking at the first half of 2015. I can tell you that much. Okay. Pending like catastrophe, like my laptop blows up and I lose everything.
Oh, you knock on wood. You knock on wood.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we go, is there any hints you can give us about book number 2, teasers? Yeah.
Oh, teasers or hints.
How much do you have written so far?
I'm about 2,000 in, so not very far in. But again, if I could type and tell the story as fast as my brain is crafting it, I'd be set. But I'm fortunately not that fast. So in terms of teasers, it's just, I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything, but I can say there's a lot of small significance in the details that Phoenix does.
Okay.
And so he's a very thoughtful character, and it comes out even more this go around. But he's a guy, and guys do stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
All the time.
Grew up. But that's part of why we love them, and it's all about getting redemption and everything else. Oh, I can tell you. Okay, so book 2 kind of already has like an anthem song. So if you're looking for any clues check out the lyrics to a song called Flaws by Bastille.
Oh, I love that song. Okay.
I love it too. And one of the lines in the song, it's you always wear your flaws upon your sleeve, and I always bury them deep in the ground. So
I love it.
There's a lot of Phoenix that we don't know that we're going to find out. And
But I was suspicious of that in the beginning. I knew there was something more to Phoenix. I just knew it. Like, you're too good to be true. What's wrong?
But let's say he is a good guy.
He is.
Really is. But
He's not the
boys
Sully.
love, they do dumb shit. That's just as how it depends on what I'm writing. So if I'm like in a really good groove and it's just the words are coming out of my fingertips really fast, I'm probably listening to just sounds of nature. Like I've got a Spotify playlist called A Sudden Rainstorm, and it is no joke, 17 hours of and
Oh my.
white noise.
I would love that playlist. I can't write to music, and I like to write to like rainstorms. I'm going to follow you on Spotify.
But then when I'm finding myself really inspired and I'm into a scene, that's when the individual songs will come up and I'll play them ad nauseum. Like Everlong, for example, that that was all over the place. Every version of that song I could find, I listened to 20 times over. And then, there's a scene with the bachelorette party. I reference a song by Yell, and I had this obnoxious techno remix probably blaring for 2 days straight. My husband was about to kill me. There's things that I will do to put myself in the mindset of that moment in that scene, but for the most part, I try to keep it very neutral. So, I can tap into the sentiment of lyrics, but not to the point where it's like problematic, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I loved that you had Everlong when Phoenix says that's like the greatest love song ever written, because that was my wedding song. So I was like, yeah, go Phoenix. Oh, okay, ladies, anybody else have any more questions for BL before we go?
No, we just have to do like a quick shout out to Barbs of the World. We have to unite, so high five.
I love it.
Thanks so much for being with us, BL. So everybody listening, make sure you look up BL on social media so you can follow her and keep up with all the new things and what's happening. Yay! Okay, and cut.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You can find out who will be on upcoming shows and what books we'll be discussing, as well as more about our hosts at www.bookboyfriendpodcast.com. See you next time when we add another boyfriend to the ranks.